Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways, Coyote in the Highlands. We are having a little different camera angle because I'm in Lake Havasu right now. I'm sitting here waiting for the coffee shop to open so I can get a herbal tea just because I want to, I guess. And we're talking about urban density and urban living, and Havasu is one of those fantastic places because it's a manufactured city. There's nothing here, no reason for this to be here except that some guy decided to build a city in the desert. And it actually works pretty well. Their water handling is reasonable for what amounts to a resort village. You know, they don't have too many golf courses. They don't have too much stuff. They have a lot of xeriscaping. There is grass. There's plenty of grass. There's enough grass to make it comfortable, but there's not an overabundance. Most of the houses don't have lawns, for example. You know, when you want a lawn, you're going to end up at a public space or one of the very few golf courses. And I don't have a problem with golf courses. You know, this is one of the things about the urbanists themselves, especially the so-called social democrat urbanists, is that they want to restrict. They want to tell people. You get into these threads and people have this massive thing where everyone must ride a bike. Even electric bikes are evil. All of this is evil. Everyone should be able to do everything on a bike. And if you need more than a bike, then you just need to get on a train. And, you know, they don't understand their infrastructure. They don't understand psychology. They don't understand that not everyone wants to be limited to a bike and bike panniers, little side baskets, for everything for the rest of their life. Certainly that would suck for me because I really like to travel. You know, and I really, the independence of the gypsy caravan, just to put it like in real easy terms, being able to live in a station wagon or a van, or in one case, I lived in a Ford Pinto, which was actually really sucky because the seats don't recline in a Pinto. That was one of the cost-saving measures, so it's not terribly comfortable to sleep in. You put a towel in the center console and you sleep sideways. It's fine when you're 22 or 26 or 29. Probably not so good if you've got a girlfriend, though. You know, these things matter to me. I have known a person with a bike RV, bike trailer that he slept in, and it was kind of weird. And I think that is so much of an edge case that while it should be allowed and permissible and celebrated, it's not really a solution. You know, and the social democrat urbanists, I don't know why, but they tend to identify as social democrats. I don't even know what they mean by that because it doesn't have anything to do with democracy. It has to do with proscription and prescription, them telling other people what to do. I guess that's the social part of social democracy. Whatever I vote on is what everyone else must do. Yeah, that makes sense. They tend to want to tell other people what to do in a massive way. And they hate golf courses. All golf courses are the major form of waste, and if we just got rid of them, then all the rich people would be poor and it would all be a perfect utopia. Whatever, dude, that's not going to work, right? That's just not how it goes. So I'm sitting here in a manufactured city, and I would like to talk a little bit about how do you do dense urban environments? And what can we do to promote this? And that's the real question. So if you look at Scottsdale has a green belt and trails system. There's lots of hiking trails. And there's a really extensive and good green belt, but it's very limited. There's not enough of it. There needs to be in the space of Scottsdale before they started leasing the Pima Reservation land, but in the original space of Scottsdale, like between 64th, 68th Street, whatever, depends on the part of Scottsdale, and Pima Road, that there's a space there. Really, they needed to have 2 or 3 green belts, especially given the size, because the green belt's pretty narrow. And that would have helped a lot more. With the population density and the use, it's not enough, but it's a really good idea. The green belt is actually really fantastic. It's a park that is miles long and anywhere from 1 to 3 blocks wide, and it really helps. It helps break up the city. It helps with stuff. There's still, despite the fact that people have used water extensively for decades out there's still too much unshaded space, black asphalt and sidewalks and roofs that aren't shaded, and that creates heat islands, and it's already bad enough that it's there. I think that we've actually raised the soil temperature in the Phoenix area, the soil temperature, so much that it's stressing out the saguaros. You can see them doing some odd behaviors. And yes, plants do have odd behaviors when they're stressed. Stuff that you don't see in saguaros anywhere else in the desert, the Sonoran Desert, or even up in our property. So it's odd, but you know, there is a green belt, and that's one of the solutions. But the green belts need to be sort of it needs to be kind of a different model, like separately, like split differently. Like the green belt should be the majority of the space, with the urban housing, the denser housing, being more of a strip, okay? So that part is narrower and faces outward. You don't want to have anyone facing inward. Maybe a few people, maybe some people like it. You know, you can do that, but you don't want to really structure things so that it's urban, and then a little bit of green. You want a lot of green and a little bit of urban. That's why I talk about line cities at the end of the last video on the topic, where you have the interstate and you just build. You have the interstate, the main highway, you have a rail in the middle, everyone gets to drive, there's an exit every couple of miles, whatever, you park, and in your local community you don't drive. That's actually a really key thing. Or you drive golf carts or other low-speed vehicles, like e-bikes, regular bikes, whatever. Walking paths, lots of walking paths. And you have that 500... Well, you need to have 500 or 800 feet, you know, a couple hundred meters of green at the edges of the highways, because that helps insulate the noise, and as long as you're using any kind of combustion engine, it helps with the air quality. It helps suck up some of the air, and it's a good idea. You don't want to build too close to the freeway. And then you have a strip of housing and development, and that strip is only a couple blocks wide, and then you have, on the other side, you have more wilds. And you can expand that as you go, you know, expand that, more green space, more city, more green space, and that works really well. And if you have that linear system with good transportation, then you can just extend and extend and extend, and instead of occupying entire basins and fucking up the entire water system, you have these strips, road cities, you know. And this comes out of this idea first made its appearance in science fiction magazines in the 50s, late 40s, early 50s, and it's interesting that it just kind of picked up to. This is an urban planning thing, you know. It's not just me talking about it. There are other people thinking about it. And it picked up, but it did start with science fiction in the 40s and 50s, and that's kind of interesting and fun. Ring cities are another one. The problem I have with ring cities, well, I think ring cities are good hubs, good areas for crossroads, for natural areas where you've got waterways and roadways coming together. I think that they are a little more limited because you have very constrained spaces in those rings, but rings are a fantastic way to handle your green space. You need to not develop miles and miles and miles of urban and then have some sort of magical untouched Eden wilderness and assume that there's going to be no pollution, because you can't do that. You don't have enough green stuff or natural cycles around you to actually do that. It just doesn't work. So, point of this video is what do we do? What are the solutions? Ring cities, green belts are a fantastic way to do it. Building more parks, getting more lots into park systems is a really good idea. Parks have to be usable by people. That means you're going to have the stuff to do the parks, and that might mean you have to water the grass. As sinful and evil and horrible as it is to have green growing things, and I have no idea how the environmentalists have gotten to this point, but they hate green growing things now if it involves cities. You need to have that. People need that. That's the whole point. People need that. The ecology needs that, which means you need to figure out ways to handle gray water. We're slowly getting there. you may have to guerrilla that. There's a guy in Tucson who's got an entire guerrilla neighborhood where they built swales and everything, and it's all green and lush and growing, and they fixed the water cycle on a local basis. Can you do that? Can you do that on a community basis? Can you do that large enough? I don't know. This is one of those cases where you may have to come together in local government groups and just change the zoning, do some research and make stuff work. On an individual basis, I don't know what you can do. Probably the best thing to do is band together and find cheap land and turn it into nice places and work on it, you know. I got 40 acres I'll share with you up in the mountain. So that's a hard one. The solutions are a hard one. You can come up with these plans, but then these plans require so much top-down stuff. Just a couple of rich people can change the world with this one. You know, someone who's willing to buy a couple square miles at the edge of a city and just start making it and recovering, taking the really crappy sections like Detroit. There's plenty of stuff in Detroit where you could remap, remake, revitalize the city. At one point, we had, $5,000 houses there, and it would have been cool if we could have gotten a group together. There's opportunities exist. Get a group together, buy thousands of these houses, hundreds of these houses, and start making a green belt. Just make a green belt out of it. That doesn't mean get rid of the houses so much. In the case of Detroit, you're dealing with existing infrastructure. You're probably going to want to reduce the size of the houses, get rid of add-ons that are crappy, get rid of some of the concrete and the excess stuff, open up the backyards as parks, kind of modify things. You can build HOAs for that. That's probably the best way to do it because the lots are lots. You don't want to split them off. They're already as small as they can be. So you just you make the houses as small as you possibly can on the existing structures. Maybe turn them into duplexes, and you make the backyards into parks. They're only 100 feet wide, 110 feet wide, 150 feet wide, but that works. They're parks now. Controlling the access to the parks is also important because right now our society is kind of broken and we need to not have people pooping in the grass. And that's a problem, There's other problems with that, and you need to have controlled areas. We do need to have wilds. We need to have unrestricted commons. We need to have places where if people want to do that, they can go there and do that. Not necessarily poop. I think we should provide some amount of sanitation that's workable and usable. This is a problem I don't have good solutions for without some method of enforcement and behavioral expectations. But you can have areas where people won't be bothered no matter how crazy they are, because that's just necessary. You're going to have that. We have too much population right now to deal with things without that. That's, I don't know what else to say about that. I was at a tire shop yesterday. We ended up staying in Havasu because of some mechanical needs on this trip, and I was at a tire shop, and I watched the guys kind of look at one of the crazy people. There are some crazy homeless people in Havasu who came he walked in 3 times in 15 minutes to get waters. They have free water. So a lot of places in Arizona that do services have free water. It's necessary out here. And so he got 3 bottles, and they looked at him a little bit, but he was obviously in his homeless, but he didn't say anything. He didn't yell at anyone. He didn't trash anything. He just got some water and left, and that's okay. It's tolerable, it's survivable, it's fine. Everybody won in that situation. The store actually looks pretty good because they're not like locking the doors to the water cabinet and putting customer only signs up and doing things that make you feel uncomfortable when you're there. And the guy wins because he's getting his water. It was hot yesterday, not as hot today. It's only going to be 95 today, according to the weather guessers. But he was just quiet and unobtrusive, as unobtrusive as he could be, and he just came in and got it and went on his bike and left after he slammed one, slammed the second one, took the third one and left. That's fine. There's no real big deal there. So I think that works. It's an example of how the model has tolerable facets, you know, because this is the big problem. How do you deal with the other sides of urban life? And that's where this video gets long and drawn out and goes off into the weeds, because I don't know, I don't have all of the answers for this. But I think that having some areas where you're a little less enforcement oriented is good, but you need to have areas that are safe. You need to have areas where it's okay to let your 5-year-old just run around, you know, and not worry about things. That's actually a really good and important thing. So, you know, or where old people or anxiety-filled people feel safe walking around. This stuff is important, especially for healing humanity, because we really need to heal our collective psyche, and that's part of the thing here. So that's all I got. You know, I think ring cities are an answer in the appropriate areas, but I think that strip cities, line cities of green belts are a really good answer, and there is a ton of land for sale in rural areas along interstates where this could be made to happen. Just out here on Interstate 40 between Havasu and Yucca, so that's Yucca is an almost non-existent small town halfway between Havasu and Kingman. Havasu's off 40 a couple miles, but between that exit for 40 and Kingman, you've got, I've tracked it, you've got something like 30 to 60% of the land is available, and that's from the highway going back about a half a mile on either side, maybe a mile, depends on, some of the lots are really big, and you could do that. You know, you have to build the infrastructure. You're going to have to deal with the washes and the swales and the monsoon season, and the fact that it's desert and the water supplies aren't all that great in general, but I think you could do it. You could make it work. You could do some, you know, thermal mass, medium density, high density buildings that will keep cool in the summer and warm in the winter, and you could do it. You could turn it into a very pleasant desert scape with some green. You know, there's plenty of Palo Verde growing wild out there. It's not barren. It's just, you know, Palo Verde, mesquite, acacia, creosote. There's actually plants out there. You can actually manage and tend and make it as pretty as you want, and there is enough water to actually do stuff with. So, big washes. So, that's the thing. You know, look at the interstates. Look at that. Get a couple $100 million together. Start it up. It only takes a couple $100 million means getting 50,000 people, 80,000 people together, and you get that going. You get it going as a corporation, as a community. You know, and everyone wants to live there. Maybe everyone can't live there at first. You know, you can make it work. The interstates, especially in the West, have tons and tons of available parcels. Once you get east of Kingman, there's another set of tons of parcels for 10 miles. 10 miles is a long distance to actually work on the city thing. You just need a couple exits, some frontage roads. You know, if the interstate system isn't serving you and the exits are 10 miles apart, then you have some frontage roads for a while. The point being to get the infrastructure done so that you have the green belts, you have the wild spaces, you have places for people to walk and enjoy nature and get out of their heads a little bit. And that also soaks up some of the just natural pollution of people living, okay? There's an environmental advantage there that is just insane. And if you use gray water systems, then it gets even better, because now you have much more, you have green areas, green pockets that are really useful. And that's about all I got for you right now. Stay sideways.